We'll start on the front here on the right hand side on the fill. There's a couple new features we got. There's a new handle here. We can lower this down so we don't have to lift the hose so far up to hook up, which is pretty nice. We still have the manual valve, but now also we have an air purge system where you have to open it and there is a valve right up there. And when it's green, it is open, and there is an indicator that you can see from in the cab to know when it's open and closed. The only thing about it is when you load the sprayer and if you fill right up and say you puke some out to overflow, do not shut this valve because it's going to shoot air down this big 3-inch and shoot it back to the into the 1.5 inch, and you'll just push it out and blow it out. Have your tank lid open. Do not shut this valve because then you'll cover the sprayer in chemical and probably yourself too. So just make sure you can leave this valve open all day if you want. You don't have to shut it. And you can shut it and open it from in the monitor, and Bryce will show you where that is later on. One other thing that's new on the 50 series is now we got an air lock, so when we're cradled up, the booms automatically get locked into place, and when you unfold they automatically unlock, so there isn't a switch for the lock and unlock. It's all done through the auto fold. And then we'll move in underneath the sprayer. So starting with the cab filter, I would recommend to change this at the start of the season. And when you get a new one, do not open the bag until you're ready to put it in and start using it, because the minute you open that, the charcoal filter starts releasing. So I mean, make sure you keep it in the bag until you're ready to start using it. Moving over here, you can notice we no longer have a radar. It is gone, so now your speed is solely coming from GPS. So on the water separator, like I was saying, make sure if the light comes on the Viz 2, Bryce will show you with the Viz 2, make sure you stop and you unplug it and then you drain that water out. We want to make sure and get that water out of there as soon as possible. And then moving back, we have our depth filter. The main one is the canister, and then you have one up here that's just a little one in line. Staying up here, now you can see we have a nut here, and then there's two on the outside. These now are pucks inside. We done away with our stainless steel shims, so when our axles start moving back and forth in there and we need to shim it, we actually just can turn this nut in. There's a big puck inside there, so we can tighten that up, which I mean shouldn't be, maybe once a year you might have to do it. And with the axle slides, you want to make sure if you have them out, before you slide them in, you get out and you clean the mud and dirt off top of them. You don't want to leave it muddy when you're sliding in and out. And we're still using the dry graphite for it. Right here, this ring, we've always had it. This is where you have to jack now when you want to change tires. You cannot jack down below on the suspension. The bottom of it, it has to be done from in here. This is your tie down, but it's also a part of, this is where you have to pull. If you get stuck, this is where you have to pull from. You cannot pull from the bottom of the suspension anymore. Moving over to the suspension, we have a new suspension. We got it, no longer it's active. It's a 4-bar suspension. We got 4 pivots there, and back in there and there, and now we have an airbag instead of a spring. We do have one shock behind each airbag, and that's for the stability. The airbag is ran off this load leveler. It's either on, up, or down. You cannot change it. And it, same principle, like it kicks back and up, but it's no longer active. It's a true hydraulic drive now. Craig will get into that. Up here, you got 5 grease nipples on a bank, and then we got 4 back here, and when the shield's on, you can get to them. So there's 9 on each wheel. but plus on the front, we still have the 2 on our steering cylinders. On them, I would grease, give a couple shots every day. That includes the boom too, like the back rack and the tilt especially. Make sure you give them a couple shots every day. This is your manual sparge valve. If it is shut, you cannot run your sparge from in the cab, so it has to be open. This here is your electronic sparge valve, which is ran from in the cab, and there is an indicator on it so you know where it's at. This one here is your quick fill. If you want to use your pump on your sprayer to fill, you open it up. Make sure that it's always closed when you're spraying. A common call we get in the springtime is my sprayer will only build about 30 PSI. You've probably more than likely when you were winterizing it, you left it open, so just come back down and shut it off. And now with the front fill, there's that monitor up front. You can move the monitor from the front to the side, and you don't have to move the flow meter anymore, because if you look here, follow the pipe, the front Y's into the side fill, then it goes through the flow meter. So all you got to do is just unbolt the meter and move it to the side or the front, whichever way you want it to go. With the level hose, we've changed it. It's a higher UV rating on it, so we should be able to get a couple of years before it goes brown and we can't see. Plus, we also added a color ball in there.
Rob's going up on top of the sprayer here. The first thing you'll notice, we widened out the catwalk a little bit, so it's going to be a little easier to move up there. Exclusive to 1,600 gallon tanks, Rob is pointing out a little level indicator there, so that's just going to be our half full indicator. That's just for 1,600 gallon tanks, so any other size product tank, we can just use the sight glass. Moving back here, the rad cleanout doors, so we can remove those to get into our rads, blow them out, clean them off. Our reversible fan is also in there now, so Bryce will touch on that in the monitor. All new hood for 50 series sprayers, so it's going to get us better access to the engine bay and a little better access down here to our engine oil dipstick. Another thing we've added to the hydraulic tank is a dedicated fill spout on top of it. So we can just top up the hydraulic oil there if we need. One thing to note with that is if you're going to be topping it off, make sure that you are removing the breather filter first to relieve the pressure. I will just touch on the wheel motor over here. So this has changed up quite a bit. The biggest thing to remember with this is to make sure you change the oil at the first 50 hours of use. So filling and draining is the same as our 40 series. We'll have our drain at the bottom, and then we have a fill spout on the side. So we just fill until we're at our line and oil is pouring out. We did change the oil in there as well. There is a 50 weight gear oil now instead of an 85 weight. One other thing with these hubs is if you do need to tow the sprayer, we have to unlock them now. So to unlock them, we will just take this cap off and then pull it a little shaft, and now it's going to be unlocked so we can tow the sprayer. I will move over to the fill station here now. So with the fill station, we changed up the legend map here quite a bit. Really, the two you're going to use the most are your rinse or spray and sparge. That being said, we still kept the gray to spray motto. So as long as your handles are pointing towards the gray box, you're going to be good to spray. The mount for the fill screen that Rob talked about in the front is here as well, and the plug is just up here. Our switch is down over here, so we've still got an emergency stop switch. Pressing that switch in is going to kill all power, so no crank, no start. Our S1 switch is going to be our light switch for the operator station here. So that is also sort of a safety feature. When this switch is on, that tells the cab that someone is down here, so you won't be able to move the sprayer from the cab. And then our S2 switch here is going to be our manual pump override. So with that in manual, we now have operation over the RPM. Moving over here, just on the frame, you'll notice that the AutoBoom XRT node is mounted directly to the frame of the sprayer. And this is going to give the AutoBoom sort of a heads up or a timing, so that when the frame of the sprayer reads a dip in the field, it's going to give that boom some extra time to think about it. We have some auxiliary power plugs here as well. So these are just to power something like an extra 12-volt sprayer pump. Not really to be used to boost the sprayer. They are 60 amp fused, so if you do try to boost off these plugs, you'll probably just blow that fuse. And then the last thing over here is we do have a big toolbox as well. So we will move over to the booms now. So all new for 50 series sprayers, AimFlex 2. With AimFlex 2, the first thing I'll touch on is the steel boom line. So the first thing we did was actually have bigger holes on the boom. So one thing to note with that is if you do have any extra saddle bodies left from your AIM, if you had an AIM 1 or 4440 sprayer, they will not work with this sprayer. So this will be the new one with the bigger hole. Then the new NCV, so I've got a new one here and an old one beside it. So with this new NCV, totally new casing. It is pressure washer, waterproof safe now. This tool is going to come with the sprayer in the cab. So the one end of it is going to fit into the end of the nozzle here so that we can take it apart. And once we take it apart to get in there, we can get at the poppet if we had to clean it or replace it. So new poppets for AimFlex 2 are going to be heavy duty poppets as well. So I'll set the new one and the old one here right beside it. So looking at the new heavy duty poppet, there is now 4 glands located around it instead of 2. So that's going to give the poppet a better cooling and chemical dissipation for the poppet itself. We do have 3 different control modes with the new NCV now. So default is going to be 20 hertz from factory, and that's going to be your pulses per second. We can also change it to 15 hertz or 10 hertz as well. Previously on AimFlex 1, they were always just set at 10 hertz, so we do have the option now. Similar to AimFlex 1, the NCVs will spray in an odd and even spray pattern, so the odds will pulse alternate to the evens, and that's going to get us our correct overlap and coverage for our 110-degree nozzles. That being said, each NCV does still have its own dedicated serial number, so it is mapped in the monitor on this boom in correlation to where it is. So if you do happen to replace one or move it, there is a calibration procedure for that, and Bryce will show you in the monitor how to do that. We also supply a NCV bypass plug. So if one does happen to go down and you don't have an extra one on you, we can use this bypass plug just to complete the circuit. So if one were to go down, say in the center of the boom here, what we would do is usually take the one from the very far end. We'd grab that good one, put it here, and then we would put our bypass plug at the very end. That way we have total coverage over the boom minus the last 20 inches on the end. I'll just move over to the AutoBoom sensor here. So with Auto Boom XRT radar sensors, one is located right here. We're going to have 4 different control modes with that. So mode 1 is going to be our ground regular. So that's going to be pulsing 2 beams. Mode 2 is going to be our ground locked. That's going to be 1 beam, and that's just going to be looking for the ground. Mode 3 is going to be our crop or canopy regular mode, and that's also going to be 2 beams. And then mode 4 is our crop or canopy locked mode. So that's 1 beam, and it's strictly looking for the top of the crop or canopy. With those 4 modes, we really only recommend running 2 and 4, which is our locked modes. That way, if there's any change in crop condition, we're not going to get that auto boom diving or dipping. One other thing to note, with 135-foot booms only, there is going to be a few fuses located along the booms. Okay, at the back rack, we still have our 3 main boom filters, so left, center, and right. They do come now with a drain on the bottom of them, so we can drain them out before we have to get in there and clean the filter. They are going to come with 80 mesh filters from the factory, which is recommended to use with AIM Flex 2. Moving up, we have a nozzle cleanout station now. So there is going to be fresh water here from the rinse tank, and then an air chuck, so we can rinse and blow out our tips. We also do have another main fuse bank located back here. Just moving over to the RCM, so new for AIM Flex 2, we went strictly to RCM node. We got rid of the PC2 node that used to be located around here. So with that node, it's still going to come with a wireless remote that will allow you to come to the back of the sprayer and manually check your sections or nozzles. And then up top, we still have a backup camera and light. Moving down here behind, we also have a new updated boom hydraulic block. So in this block now, we're going to be controlling the auto boom, or the auto centering of the booms and the boom lead lag timing. So previously on 40 series sprayers, we had issues with the booms kind of swaying forward and back with lead lag. Now with this block, when we fold out, we're going to sort of lock into that position so they're not swaying back and forth anymore. With that block as well, we did go to a quick connect hydraulic coupler. The reason we did this was, if you notice, if I twist these, they actually will swivel freely without becoming loose. So the old ones, if they did have any twist or swivel motion in there, they could work themselves loose, and then you'd have an oil leak. Okay, the first thing we got here is Rob is going to show the new tool that he was mentioning for if we need to change tires. So that kind of just plops into there. It'll come with a pin to hold it into place, and then we can use that to change our tires. A couple other things back here. You'll notice we got rid of the gear increaser, so we just went straight pumps. The air tank is also located back here. So with the air tank, we do have a water drain valve at the bottom of it, and then we have a air suspension dump valve. So with this dump valve, really the only time you'll be using it is if you are tying this thing down to a trailer. Another thing to know with that dump valve, there is a safety relief valve in there that will not let the bags, or will not open if the bags are not 100% full. So if this sprayer has been sitting for some time, you come to open that valve and nothing comes out. At that point, we would just have to get in the cab, fire it up, let it air up to 100%, then we'd be able to come back here and empty them.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the drive system. So Bryce is going to get into it a little bit deeper. So we did a total redesign as far as the drive. Connor alluded to the fact that we've eliminated the gear increaser. So we've gone from a 2 hydrostatic pump system, which we had on legacy Patriots, where we had to utilize active suspension, and then you also had the heel brake for traction control. So now that's done all automatically for you. So single hydrostatic pump, infinite variable wheel motors. So any event where I happen to lose any speed, each wheel motor has a speed sensor in it. If that particular wheel motor senses 0 speed, say it's the right-hand front corner, I sense 0 speed in that, I'm going to shut the flow to that wheel motor, and the flow is going to go to the remainder 3 wheel motors. Okay? Prior to that, 40 series, you had to step on that heel pedal, splitting the hydros so that you could have ultimate drive. With this system, it's all done for you. So simplifies everything in that aspect. The climbing ability of it has increased immensely. So in the past, if we happened to get one tire, if we were climbing up a ditch, we'd get one tire off the ground. We'd kind of be sitting there unless we stepped on the heel pedal. With the 50 series and the redesign of the hydrostatic drive system, like I said, that no longer plays into the effect. Okay. And then Bryce is going to go into a little bit deeper, but I'll talk about the fact that we can physically turn off traction control. So that'll give you the ability, if you turn it off, will give the ability to slip up to 20%. Okay? So that's going to do one of 2 things. Either you're going to dig down further, or you're just going to get further into the slough. Okay? So I would just recommend leaving it in automatic. It's just like auto diff lock on your 4-wheel drives, auto 4-wheel drive on your vehicles. Just leave it in automatic. That's going to give you the best of both worlds to power through that.
Okay, so a couple changes on the right-hand side of the sprayer that have changed from the 40 series is now we have a smart valve located right here. If you can see the green light and the indicator going parallel, you know that is open. The reason why that is there is because now we have the ability to flush out the booms as well. So that is operated from the cab, from the monitor, and I'll show you where that is in there. If you can, it might be a little hard to see from the camera, but when you stand up and walk around, you'll see that in behind there is a air hose coming in here. That's where the air comes in to blow out the actual booms, so you can do a boom flush. With that boom flush, you can flush it out through the nozzles, or you can actually go through the actual boom cleanouts at the very end of the booms. Moving forward from that smart valve, we still have our flow meter located right here. The flow meter has an arrow on it. Make sure that the arrow is pointing towards the back of the sprayer. We've had a couple this year where the flow meter was installed wrong. So if you are walking around, hopefully we caught that at the dealership. With that as well, on the flow meter in the past, there's a little tag on the wire. Make sure if your flow meter, when you get it home, if we haven't written the flow meter cal number on the flow meter, to write it on the flow meter. Just so when the tag comes off in a week, you actually know what the flow meter cal is to re-enter it into the monitor if someone ever erases it out for you. Moving forward again, we do have our primary boom filter right here. This is the one coming right off the tank, and there is the drain valve as well, located on it as well. We have our battery box. They have changed the battery disconnect. It's no longer on the front side, it's actually in the box. There's a cutout on the battery box so you can shut it on and off from there. And moving up from there, we do have fuses located in the battery box. With any new AFS Connect Stagger, Magnum, or sprayer, if you guys have ran one at your farm already, you know when you open up the door, you hear an audible click. That audible click is the relay for the body control module, and happens every single time you open up the door. The reason for that is once it clicks, it starts waking up all the controllers, so the GPS can start trying to converge and the other controllers can start coming online without you having to start the sprayer up. Then after you close the door on the sprayer and shut it off, and you walk away, 7 minutes later usually, you'll hear another audible click. That's it shutting everything down. And why it has to stay on for 5 to 7 minutes longer is with the AFS Connect equipment, it sends everything to your portal. So it takes that 5 to 7 minutes to actually transfer all the data into your MyFarm account or your Slingshot account. There is an optional toolbox on the sprayers to be mounted on the right-hand side. This one does have that option. One thing I don't know if everybody's aware of, all the sprayers that were sold out of Redhead equipment this year are running this receiver on the roof. This is called the AFS Vector Pro. So in the past, everybody in here has probably had the ability to buy a farm plan for their, if they run multiple units, for their GPS subscription, say a CenterPoint RTX subscription. That is no longer available on this receiver. Now we have AFS 1, which is very similar to RangePoint, AFS 2, which is very similar to RTX CenterPoint. With that as well, these can be unlocked at any time. So when we're doing our orientation, if you want better GPS convergence, we can unlock it at that time just by sitting in the unit. So if you haven't walked up and looked at it, the whole right-hand side armrest has changed completely. The hydro handle, you guys will notice if you were playing with it, it no longer stays ahead if you push it. It's spring return to neutral. So it's always neutral returning. So you can set your speed, and if you push it ahead, that's as fast as it's going to go. So to set your speed over on the Viz 2 over here, you can see the top line is saying 9.4 mile an hour. There's a bar graph down here. If we were driving it, this would be 0, this would be 9.4 mile an hour. So if I only push this halfway, the hydro handle, it would only come halfway up. If I pushed it all the way ahead, it would only go to a maximum of 9.4 mile an hour. With that as well, on the Viz 2, this is the maximum speed like I stated. Then underneath we have a speed range 2 and we have a speed range 1 here. Those can be set to any speed you want. For example, you'd have speed range 1 for, say, turning in your headlands, maybe at 8 mile an hour, and you'd have speed range 2 for going down the field, maybe at 15 or 16 mile an hour. So to set those speed range 1 and 2, if we can focus over on the hydro handle, we have this dial on the hydro handle. So if I turn the dial, once he focuses back on the UViz 2, you'll see that top number change. So I can take it up to, it goes up in tenths of a mile, and then it goes up in by 2s, and then after 15 mile an hour, it goes up by 1 mile an hour. So we'll just roll this to get to 15 mile an hour. If I press and hold on my hydro handle on 1 or 2, I can set that. So I'm going to press and hold on number 2. And you can notice on the UViz 2 now, we can set our speed to, number 2 is set to 15 mile an hour. Number 1 is set at 12 mile an hour. So on the hydro handle, we could toggle in between 1 and 2 to have 2 different speed ranges in the cab. So we no longer have that pot on there that you can turn, that rheostat, to set your speed. We now have 2 separate speeds that you can set. Once the sprayer is moving throughout the day and you're driving forward, you don't have to actually move the hydro handle anymore. With your hand on there, just by turning this dial, you guys can control the sprayer, speeding it up or slowing it down. So you no longer have to pull back on the hydro handle or push ahead to go faster. You can run it off your thumb for the rest of the day. If you did speed this up to 19 or 22 mile an hour and you wanted to get back to your preset speeds, all you do is hit your 1 or your 2 and it takes you back down to your speed that you had before. It's not showing it on the Viz 2 just because we're not hooked up and it's not running. Any questions so far on the drive system? Another button that's on the hydro handle as well, down here on your tractor, it's called the end of row function. On the sprayer, it's your quick shuttle. By pressing the quick shuttle button, it'll go from forward to reverse if you were in forward already. If you were in reverse and you hit it, it would take you into forward. With saying that, you can set the speed that is actually going to go when you shuttle it. So on your Viz 2 here, hopefully you guys can see that on the screen up there. There's underneath the P, there's an R2. That means when you hit that quick shuttle, it's going to go into reverse and be at 2 miles an hour. Where you can set that, because that's user defined, is inside the Pro 1200. If we go to our cards menu, our sprayer, and our transmission, we have our forward quick shuttle speed and our reverse quick shuttle speed. So if you wanted to get this to, you could take it up to 7 miles an hour. Now you notice your shuttle speed when you hit that into reverse is going to take you back at 7 miles an hour. It happens fairly quickly, so I would recommend to anybody when they first get that to set that down to say 2 miles an hour in reverse. So if you do hit it, it will come to a stop and only go back at 2 miles an hour. When you first jump into the sprayer, getting it out of park is a little bit different from what you've done in the past. On the old sprayer, the 40 series and prior, all you had to do was tap on your park brake and it would release the park brake. Now it will not release the park brake until you press on the service brake on the floor and then press the park brake, it releases the park brake. One more step, you have to press on the service brake and the park at the same time to get it out of park. Once it's out of park, it'll no longer show a P up on your Viz 2, it'll show an N for neutral. If you push on your hydro handle forward or back, the sprayer is not going to move. On the front of the hydro handle, there is a neutral switch, lock switch, neutral interlock switch. If you have to press and hold it, and then if you push forward, it will go forward. If you brought it back to neutral and you wanted to go into reverse, you'd have to press it again and pull back to go into neutral. So just be aware of that. It's the same button if you run a Stagger or a Magnum. It's the same button that you guys hold in to split shift your gears after 6 or 4 when it jumps up to 6. It's that same button that you have to hold in to split shift. Any questions on driving the sprayer? Nothing? Okay. We can focus on the hydro handle here. So we went through your quick shuttle button, your dial here to speed up and slow down. This 1, 2 are where you program in your speeds for driving in your headlands and going down the field. Right here, this is new. We have our main mast now on our hydro handle. So this will lift your main mast, lower your main mast. These buttons up here at the top, this will be your right-hand side fold for folding out your inner boom. This will be your left-hand side folding your inner boom. Next, we have our steering engage is on there with the steering wheel. Moving down, we'll bypass this switch for a bit. This one right here, this will be your left-hand side raise lower of your boom and your right-hand side raise lower your boom. So no different than the top hat switches you had on your older sprayer, they're now just located down here. The last switch on the hydro handle is your spray switch. So if you turn your spray switch on by flipping it up, on your Viz 2, it'll show a spray nozzle, showing that you are spraying. One thing that's changed on this sprayer is for override. If you want to respray an area that's already been sprayed, we no longer have to go into the Pro 700, which you might have had in your old sprayer, or the Viper 4, and bypass your sectional control. We have the option on this sprayer to hold up on our spray switch, and as long as you're holding up on this, it is overriding it and overspraying in an area that's already been applied. And you can see on your 1200, it comes up and it says override active. So that's how you no longer have to go in and play with the settings or turn AccuBoom on or off or overlap on or off. As soon as you let go of it, it just goes back to normal spraying with sectional control. If there's no questions on the handle, I'm going to move in towards all the buttons on the right-hand side armrest. So on the right-hand side armrest, we'll start over here. This is our low idle button right here. It's illuminated, so if the sprayer is running, it would be running at around 850 RPM. The next two buttons above, these are our speed up and slow down buttons for the engine RPM. We no longer have a throttle handle. It's electronic here with buttons. Moving up, we have our high idle button. With this sprayer, we can spray. We no longer have to spray at 2200 RPM. We can spray at 1850 RPM. So what you can do is you would use your buttons here, the increase decrease to get to 1850. You could then press and hold your rabbit or your high idle button until it saves it. Then you can run at 1850 RPM. If you get into an area that you needed more horsepower, you're bogging down, if you tap the high idle button again, it'll go right up to the 2200 RPM. Moving up, the last button is Craig touched on traction control. We used to have a foot pedal that we could activate on the floor of the 40 series with our right-hand heel. We don't have that anymore. Traction control is on all the time. So if you want to shut traction control off, you have to press on this button. Once it's pressed, it's illuminated, and if you look up on your Viz 2, it shows you that your traction control is bypassed. Moving back to the right-hand side armrest, we have the buttons going across the front of the right-hand side console. We have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And we also have this button right here, which is a quick button to get to the monitor where you can configure these 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 can be configured to do whatever you want. I would recommend having button number 1 to increase your sparge pressure and button number 2 to decrease your sparge pressure. If you don't want that, you could have any one of these buttons do anything you want, from answer your phone to turn up the music, to turn down the music, to turn the fan up, to turn the fan down, your temperature, anything you want in there. It could do nudges as well if you wanted. But we recommend having 1 and 2 on there because it's a quick push of a button and you're not going into the monitor. To set that up, if I tapped on my quick change button right here on the right-hand side console and we focused over at the 1200, you would notice it took us to our cards menu and configurable controls. So it's no different to anybody who's running an AFS Connect Stagger or Magnum, same thing. If you wanted to have number 4 to do anything you wanted, you could tap on the gear and we could go into our lights and we could have it so it turns on, it toggles between memory 1 and memory 2 of your lights. So now simply by pressing the number 4 button on the right-hand side console, it'll toggle in between your lights. At any time, you could default all these so they don't do anything and you could add in whatever you wanted. Back over to the right-hand side console. The next button, past number 4, is also a quick change button as well. So this quick button, if we press it, it'll take us in the 1200 to our liquid management. So in here, this is exactly what Rob was talking about earlier on with the front fill reclaim here. So if you were filling your sprayer and you filled the tank up 100% and you still had product in your front fill, if you reclaimed it at the time, all you would do is blow that extra product out onto the ground. So you could spray a bit in the field, and then when your tank was down, to take those extra couple gallons that are left in your front fill, you could come in here, tap on your front fill reclaim, and push that extra chemical that is in that front fill into your tank. The other option in here is our boom air purge. And if you click on it, like I said, about that smart valve that's located up by the flow meter now, you have the ability to blow out your nozzles, your NCVs, or you can blow out your boom flush valves. So to do your boom flush valves, you still have to get out manually and walk along your boom and open up every single boom clean out at the end. But we do have the 2 options. If you did check any one of them, there is a wizard in there. So if we checked on boom flush valves and hit next, it'll actually bring up, if we were spraying and everything, we could actually see all the instructions on how to do it. Moving back over to the right-hand side console, the last button here is to turn your pump on and off. This is your main spray pump. So you can turn your main spray pump on and off on your right-hand side console, or you can do it in your Pro 1200, or you could do it on your spray screen. So there's really 3 places you could turn it on and off. But there is a button on your right-hand side console that always stays active so you can turn it on and off. Once it's turned on, the light is illuminated on the button. Moving down, I don't know if you can, does that work? We have 4 more buttons down here. This is the buttons to fold out the outer tips of your sprayer. Last over here is our auto fold button. So with auto fold, there's boom air locks now on all the booms. As soon as you press and hold your auto fold button, it unlocks the pneumatic cylinders, allows your booms to come out of the cradle. They fully unfold, they go back down to its last spraying height, and it turns on your auto boom, or your height control. If you hold it in the opposite direction, it picks up the main mast, it folds everything in, comes into the cradle, sets down, the boom locks come on, and it shuts off your height control or auto boom as well. Same as the 40 series and everything prior, you have to be sitting still. You cannot be moving to unfold the booms. You have to be sitting in neutral and not moving. Lastly, we have these buttons here in the center. There's a dial. The only thing I find useful with this dial is for going through your run screens on your Pro 1200. If you turn the dial here, it would actually shuttle through your run screens. You can on here answer your phone or go to your phone settings, go to your temperature control or your music. But the problem is once you tap that button to get into one of those functions on the 1200, you have to touch the screen to get back out. So the only thing I really use it for is turning the dial itself to cycle through your run screens. There's 3 buttons here. Is that good, Craig? You can see that? So the top button you always have to press to illuminate it, to turn on your axle adjust, and then the next one down would spread your axles out. The next one down from there would retract your axles. Same as before, it used to be located underneath your armrest. You have to be moving less than 5 miles an hour. If you read the ops manual, it also says to have the tank empty, but I don't know if we've ever done that. So tank should be empty, less than 5 miles an hour, and if you want to help it to come out, if you turn, as you're driving forward, turn your wheel right and left to be turning, and it helps bring the axles out. If you are sucking your axles back in, and you are spraying in muddy conditions, if there's a bunch of mud on top of the axle slides and you slide them in, you're gonna have trouble with your axle slides later on. On the Viz 2, which is now your A post, nothing on the Viz 2 can be changed. It cannot be, nothing can be added, nothing can be removed. It is just set up this way and you cannot configure it. But you do have your fuel, your def, your engine temperature and oil pressure, and then you have your speed and your engine RPM at the bottom. Moving down to your Pro 1200, on the left-hand side, these buttons right here, if we tap on it, it'll bring up all the codes that have came up on your sprayer. Moving all the way over, the next one, since we're inside, there's a picture of a satellite signal. If we were outside, we'd actually see satellite. Moving over, there's a picture of Wi-Fi and cellular bars. Every one of these sprayers and AFS Connect staggers and our combines all come with a PCM, which is a modem. And the modem has a 5-year subscription. So for 5 years, you're able, this thing has cellular coverage inside the cab, so we can transfer data. Also what we can do with it is we can log into the sprayer from the shop and mirror it, so we can actually move a cursor around on the screen to help you guys out in the field. Kind of like remote support. The other thing that we can do with this ability is Curtis in the service shop or Brody out of PA or Tyler or Chad out of Melfort, they can log into the sprayer remotely and clear codes or look at codes. We can also send software over the air to the sprayer as well, to the 1200 and anything on the sprayer. So it comes with 5 years, so it's in there. Also with that, it allows us to send data back and forth if you want your grower farm field information in there, or if you want your spraying data going to your My Farm account, which we should all have one set up already, everything will go there. Moving over, we have the 9 boxes. If we tap on the 9 boxes, it opens up, it shows you there's a photo gallery in here, there's a phone. You can get to your phone, you can get to your radio if you don't want to reach up to the headliner. There's your remote assistance for us to dial in, and then the update manager is the last one where we can actually update the software. If we do send software to the sprayer, it's not like you have to stop right then and there to update it. It sits in the background until you're done working, then you tell it that you want to update it. So if we send you software, it's not like you have to stop. You can do it at the end of the day. Moving over from the 9 boxes, we have a question mark. Inside here, if the product specialist from Saskatoon would have loaded the software incorrectly into this monitor, there would be manuals in here. But I didn't load it in after I updated this sprayer, but there should be manuals in here for for the sprayer, a quick reference guide for the right-hand side armrest, and also a quick reference for the Pro 1200. Any manual, if you guys have a sprayer or an AFS Connect Stagger or Magnum from us, or a 1200, we can load any manual you want into the monitor as long as it's PDF format. So if you ran a Stagger and you had a Burgo drill and you wanted the manual in your 1200, we could load it in there. Or if you ran a CDOC, we could load it in there, or if you ran a case seeding tool, we could load it in there as well. Moving over to the right of the time, you'll see it's maybe a little hard to see, there's a camera there. If you press and hold on that, that'll take a screenshot of the monitor, and that saves into the gallery. So if something popped up on the screen you wanted to take a screenshot of, you could press and hold it and take a screenshot. Where this is handy is if you're going to start monkeying around, say with your auto boom settings, and you start changing a bunch of functions, you could actually hold that, take the picture of your auto boom settings, so you can always revert back to it. And it stays in the monitor. There's a little speedometer symbol here. If we tap on it, it brings up your screen with all your information about your sprayer. One thing you'll notice on here, we now have engine hours, and also we have spray hours down here. So there's 244 engine hours on here and 60 spray hours. So spray hours are now, you're able to see. Also down in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our wheel motor temperature as well. And one other thing that you'll probably see on here is the cab pressure. This right here in the center, it's a picture of a sprayer with 2 arrows pointing at the cab. If the cab pressure is lost in the cab of the sprayer, up on your Viz2 monitor, up at the top here, you would see a picture of that illuminated, and that's what it is. So it just tell you that either your door seal isn't working or your right-hand side door isn't sealing properly. But it'll be that symbol that we saw down in the middle on the 1200. Moving again to the across to the right, we have our cards menu, which anybody who's ran a Pro 700 in here, this is your toolbox menu. There's no more toolbox, it's called cards. Once we're in there, we can go into our sprayer, and we can go to our sprayer, and very top one is settings. Next one down is our liquid management, where we went through, where is our boom air purge or front fill reclaim. Next one is your temperature control if you do not want to reach up to the right-hand side headliner. Next one down is your lights. This is where we can set our memory 1 and memory 2 of our lights. So you can pick and choose which ones you want on and save them to a memory. And then with that quick button, that number 4 I set up, you could toggle in between them. But inside the lights this is the only place that you can turn on your boom lights. So if I turn on number 8, I turn on the boom lights on the sprayer. So if you turn around and look, we have our spray pattern lights on now on the boom of the sprayer. That's the only place you can turn them on, is inside here. So you could set that as a memory 1 or a memory 2. And then that way, if you hit that button, you could turn them on. Scrolling down in here, this is where we can set our backlight settings. But the one place that everybody is our egress lighting. This is where you can set your egress lighting. What egress lighting is when you leave the cab of the sprayer after you're done, how long do the lights stay on? So you can have it going on to up to an hour or up to 2 minutes, 120 seconds. Moving down, we have our configurable controls. We went through that. We have our transmission. And lastly, we have our reversible fan. So every single sprayer comes with a reversible fan if it's ordered with it. And it's put on at the factory. There's no way to turn it on or off. It's set up on a timer where you guys can come in here and play with the timer and how long it stays on. The thing is with the fan, it has to be above 1400 RPM for the reversible fan to work. Any questions on anything I've went through before I dive into the spray screen? So to get to your spray screen at the bottom, we have all our run screens down here. If we tap on our screen that we've named VT, it'll take us to our spray screen. We'll tap on this is what your spray screen's gonna look like now. So people that have ran just aim flex, it's a little bit different. Our rate and our pressure are still on the same sides, but we now have the ability to have 3 different presets. So you can have 3 different presets for your rate and 3 different presets for your pressure. They can all be pre-programmed to whatever you want. They're defaulted to 5, 10, and 15, 20, 40, and 60 on the pressure. To change any of that, there's a button in the very center, your rate setup. Takes you there, and this is where you could play with your rates. And if you tapped on pressure rates, that's going to take you into your pressures where you can pre-program them in. With aim command or aim flex 2, we still have to tell it what nozzle's pointing down. It needs to know the nozzle that's pointing to the ground so it can figure out the duty cycle and everything else, and also the turn comp and and how much you can put out with that nozzle. So we used to have that low, medium, and high. Now we have this little bar graph going across the bottom here, and it's telling us this is 0 miles per hour, this is 37 mile an hour over here. So you notice there's a green spot in the center, and it's telling us our sweet spot for the tip that we have selected is 5 miles an hour to 16.5. There's a little red line on the edge that's going to show your speed. So if I put a fake test speed in here, of 12 mile an hour, now you can see, I don't know if you zoom in or on the screen, if you can see that red line's in the center of the green. That's telling you that's your speed range on there. So you know you're in the center of you're in your range of that nozzle. Going across the bottom, it shows your tank here. Underneath, in the white boxes, is the actual value of it. So it says our tank is 100% full at 1,600 gallons. This is our speed over here. It's showing it's going 12 mile an hour. Next is our rate, and showing 0. And the next over is our pressure, which is showing 0 as well. But if we were spraying at that 15 gallons an acre, this one would read 15, and this one right here would read 60 because we're spraying at 60 PSI. To change the tip or to pick a new tip, it's pretty simple. It's right on your home screen. You hit select tip, and it takes you into the box. And it's just like all the old sprayers as well. We can scroll through here. They're all color coordinated, and you can change your tip size in here. Once you change it, you hit your check mark, you go back to your home screen. At the bottom as well, we have flow offsets and relieve pressure. Relieve pressure, that's designed to, if you guys do have a problem on the boom, you can hit relieve pressure. It'll pulse all the nozzles to relieve all the residual pressure that's inside the boom, so when you take that nozzle apart or that saddle off, you don't get covered in spray. So by hitting it, it pulses everything for, I believe, up to 20 seconds to get everything out of the boom for you. The flow offsets, this has been something that's been available even with Aim Command Pro and Aim Flex. The difference with Aim Flex 2 now is you can have 2 of them on at the same time. With Aim Flex prior, you could only have 1 on at a time. Now we can have 2 on at a time. So for people that weren't aware of this, if we tap on this button right here, this would turn on 8 nozzles behind your tires when your tires are sucked in to combat dust. This next one over here would be if your tires or wheels were extended out, axles extended, it would turn on 8 nozzles to combat dust in behind your tires. Moving up, this one would turn on 8 nozzles on your left-hand side boom, and this one would turn on 8 nozzles on your right side outermost part of your boom. Why you'd want that is if you were spraying along a ditch and you wanted to put out more chemical there, you could. So all of these are set up to put out 25% more chemical if you turn one of these on. So we can now have 2 of them on, so I could turn on this one and also this one. So now I'd have the 8 nozzles on the left-hand side of the boom putting out 25% more product, and I'd also have the 8 nozzles behind my tires with my axles sucked in, putting out 25% more to combat dust. Lastly, we'll go into our gears. In the gears, someone was asking before about bypass mode. We're set to standard right now. Standard is what we've always sprayed in. That's normal Aim Command. Bypass is if you guys wanted to not spray through the NCV and you wanted to spray through the drip check, such as liquid fertilizer, if you wanted to do that. The other ones you guys would use, there's an on-off. What on-off does, people have used that for liquid fertilizer before as well. It tells the NCV it's either off or 100% duty cycle. But you get the ability to have single nozzle shut off. So every 20 inches is a section. So for doing liquid fertilizer, it just holds it open. When you come into an applied area, it just shuts off the power and kills it to that one NCV. The last one that everybody's used maybe with fungicide is high flow. And what high flow gives you the ability to do is to use your drip check, the nozzle that's in behind your NCV, and also your NCV at the same time. So you can hit higher rates. A lot of guys use that in fungicide. I don't know if it was mentioned on the boom walk around, but this boom, everything now with Aim Command or Aim Flex 2 is single nozzle shut off. So every nozzle is a section. It's no longer 36 virtual sections, it's every single nozzle now. Last thing to show you is the user settings. This is where we have the ability, because we pulse at 20 hertz now, we can turn it back to 10 or 15 if you wanted to. But from factory, it's coming at 20 hertz, which is 20 pulses per second. Any questions so far? The last thing to show everybody is in diagnostics. Inside here, this is where we calibrate our NCVs now. So the only time we'd ever calibrate an NCV is if we replace the NCV. If you physically put a brand new NCV into the system, or if you guys did swap diagnostics. So with swap diagnostics, if you guys swapped anything on the screen, if you swapped anything on the boom and an NCV, it no longer knows its location, so you'd have to relearn the system. What we don't want you guys to do is we do not want you to calibrate the NCVs all the time anymore. If you're having trouble, we want you guys to reboot the NCV. Reboot the controller, not recalibrate them. Before doing that, walk out to the boom and see which one of them is giving you trouble. It'll alert you on the screen. It might say number 36. So go out to the left-hand side of the boom, count over 36 nozzles. That's going to be the one that's the monitor's alerting you. and you can see what's going on with it, maybe take it apart, clean it, put it back together, and then if it's still alerting you, reboot the system. The only time you're going to calibrate the NCVs is if you physically install a new one. Okay, I'll just finish going through the monitor here. We went through everything on the spray screen. The next place I'll go is to our height control. With our height control with XRT, we no longer, on the screen, you no longer see that you have a speed setting. All you have is sensitivity. So sensitivity is picking up what's happening on the ground and moving the boom up as needed. Connor did talk about there's 4 different ranges or options for you. If you tap on this number 2, you can see your 4 different options. But we recommend if you're spraying burn off, you're going to be on number 2. If you're doing canopy, fungicide, anything like that, you're going to be on number 4. 2 and 4 are the ones you're going to use the most. With this as well, XRT works the best if your main rack is turned on for the height control. It needs it to be on to work at its optimum. So to turn that on, if we go to our gears and boom configuration, there's a check mark for center rack control. That needs to be turned on for XRT. If you are running into issues with your height control not reacting or being jerky coming up or down, let us know, because like I said, there's no more speed setting. We can go in, any one of the product specialists in your location, wherever you bought from, can step you through on how to change it, because it's no longer an easy thing to get to. But if you are having trouble, let us know and we'll step you through it. To change the height, how high you want to spray off the ground, you would just tap in your target height and go up and down, or you could use the plus minus buttons on there. To engage it, it's no different than what you've done before. If you double tap down twice on your main mast and you have your center rack on, it'll engage all your outside, it'll engage all your sensors. Last in here, we have our steering. This is what your steering page is going to look like this year. We have 4 settings in there. Sensitivity is going to be holding you on the line. Response speed is going to be working in conjunction with sensitivity to make it react quicker on the line. Line acquire only helps you to getting to the line, and last pass sensitivity is only used for last pass sensitivity if you're running last pass guidance. So adjusting last pass sensitivity and you're never using last pass will do nothing for you. Everything on the screen, since we're running 2 monitors this year, everything is going to be on the Pro 1200, and your spray screen for doing all your mapping is going to be on your Viper 4 monitor here. So your Viper 4 is going to look very clean this year. When we're opening up a job, if you guys have your grower farm field information available to us at any one of the dealerships, out of your tractor or out of your combine or from your JD linked or anything else, any data collection site, if you can get that to us, we can enter that all in and have it in your sprayer. So then your grower farm field information will all be present at the top of the monitor. Then when you start a job, it'll be tied to that field, but then have also a date timestamp on it. But once you get into your job, this is all that's going to be on your screen. You're going to have your steering widgets, the ability to dim the screen, what swath you're on, and also AccuBoom here for your sectional control. With the sectional control on the sprayer, there's a good chance when it gets to your farm, it's not going to have any numbers entered in it. So you're going to have to do some testing with your product specialist when they're doing the orientation, so you have your look ahead set correctly. So the easiest way to do that is you're going to use the wheels of your sprayer to be the line drawn in the field. So you're going to shut off your complete right-hand side boom and then drive a line. So then that right-hand side tire is going to be your headland. So now when you drive in and out across that tire track, you can see how much overlap you have. We have generic numbers that work, but it's always good to test this out. So when you're doing the orientation on your farm, that's something you should check out with the product specialist. Also on here, with all these sprayers, there is a modem coming from Raven called a slingshot modem. So there's a second modem in there. You guys, the customer, is responsible for the data package on it. So it's about $36 a month, I believe it is, through Future Communication for one unit. Gives you a SIM card. You only have to have it turned on when you're actually using the unit. So in the winter months, you could turn off the data to that SIM card. But what that gives you the ability to do is all these modems, if you have multiple sprayers, they can now do line and coverage sharing between the two units. So even if you guys have an older 4440 on your farm with a Viper 4 in it, the 50 series and the 40 series could be tied together, share the same coverage map, and also guidance lines in between the two. So the sectional control will work between the two sprayers. If you only have one sprayer and you want the data package, that gives us the ability at the dealership to dial in and step you through the monitor if needed. It also gives you the ability that any of your spray data will go directly through to your My Farm account.